Welcome to the Mojo Mundi podcast, where it's all about magic, manifesting, and movement. I'm Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch, and this episode delves into the truth about pleasure, happiness, and joy. In episode 6, I said that at some point we would explore the differences between pleasure and joy. So let's do that now. But first, I want to consider why the distinction might be important. If pleasure, happiness, and joy are synonymous, then pursuing any one of them will result in the same consequences as pursuing another. They should all have very similar positive vibrations. Their vibrations are important because emotions are the vibrations that shape what we call into our lives, what we co-create. As long as they all carry a similar positive vibration, then it won't matter which feeling we pursue, because the outcome will be the same. But what if these feelings aren't the same? What if they have different, perhaps very different vibrations? I'm sure you've guessed that these feelings are different in important ways that affect the vibration of the feeling and the consequences of that feeling. So just how do pleasure, happiness, and joy compare? From a purely physical, material, scientific perspective, it's a little tricky because some scientists don't agree on the definition of the words. Some lump happiness in with pleasure, and some lump happiness in with joy. I see these feelings on a continuum and as a complex interweaving of biology, neurobiology, psychology, and spirituality. A fair number of psychologists, sociologists, and philosophers view these feelings similarly. For our purposes, here is how we'll define these terms. Pleasure is short-term, sensorial, with little connection to cognition and with very narrow expression of emotion, and a lot of physical sensation. Pleasure arises in response to the external environment, from something ingested or done to the body. The vibration of the physical body is different than the vibration of the emotional body or the intellectual body. At the same time, these vibrations are all one, the coincidentia oppositorum of energy. So while energy is energy in the ether, and positive sensations are similar vibrationally to positive emotions and positive thoughts, they show up differently when they manifest into the physical world. They are simultaneously one and different. We understand that thought is involved with pleasure, but the thoughts are simple and directly connected to sensation. Of course, emotion is present, but the emotions are primal and may easily be confused with the overpowering sensory experiences. While dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin are all released in the body when we feel pleasure, dopamine is the main neurochemical involved. Dopamine is connected to motivation and reward. It builds simple habitual responses. Our senses are lit up and we feel good. Pleasure is also short-lived and reliant on the presence of a particular stimulus from the external environment. Here, external doesn't mean that it has to come from something that isn't ourselves. Rather, it refers to an experience received by our senses, which we can initiate, or which could be initiated by something in the environment. In other words, pleasure is a reaction of the body that feels good. Where pleasure is superficial and short-lived, joy is deep and sustained. Serotonin and oxytocin are the preeminent neurochemicals in joy, though dopamine also plays a role. Serotonin is associated with mood regulation, sleep, appetite, learning. It is a part of the process of feeling content and relaxed. Oxytocin, the love hormone, is associated with social bonding, trust, and is released when we experience physical contact, when we interact socially, or where we are in intimate emotional and physical connection with someone we care about. Oxytocin is involved when we feel warm and fuzzy, or when we feel compassion and connection to others. But joy is more than these emotions of connection and warmth, of the sensations of calm and relaxation. Joy is an internal process that connects us with our deepest capital S selves. Joy is intertwined with our sense of purpose and our gratitude. Joy also involves cognition and will. Joy is something we choose consciously and with intention, something we practice, something that moves us beyond our immediate self and connects us with deity and the observer. Joy is independent of the current state of things and is available even in the darkest of times. Happiness lies somewhere in between. Like joy, it is connected to our relationship with others, our feelings of appreciation, to an awareness of the natural world beyond basic sensory experiences. At the same time, happiness, like pleasure, is more dependent upon what is happening in the environment, though the environment of happiness includes our internal subjective environment, as well as the external physical environment. Like joy, happiness involves our cognitions, beliefs, and values. However, these beliefs and values are perceived in the context of those around us. Happiness is often more a reaction than a choice. We can shift our thinking to return to a state of happiness, but happiness is not a deep part of who we are, the way that joy is. Happiness can be a more sustained experience than pleasure, but it is also more transitory than joy. If you aren't sure that these definitions are accurate, let's look at the consequences of the vibrations of pleasure, of happiness, and of joy. Pleasure is part of being in a physical body. It is a basic avenue to shape the simplest and most necessary functions. It takes little thought, little effort, and little time. Happiness is a part of being in community. It helps us connect to care how others feel and what others think. Joy is an action of faith, a sacred practice. Here is how pleasure shows up in our culture. Pleasure is ancient. Early in our evolution, the natural environment controlled the availability of our sources of pleasure, like food, mates, rest, even intoxicants. Over time, the array of pleasurable items and activities has expanded to mind-boggling proportions. With this expansion, our relationship with pleasure becomes muddy and convoluted. Selling pleasure is highly profitable. Living a life that is devoted to pleasure above all else is a sign of great wealth and power. Consumers and businesses alike pursue the intentional escalation of pleasure intensity as necessary. Collectively, we are getting really good at substituting pleasure for happiness, joy, and well-being. I don't think human evolution has caught up with the single-minded devotion of entrepreneurs who recognize the power of pleasure to make them money. For example, the number of illicit designer drugs and drugs designed to be therapeutic, which are being used illicitly, grows exponentially with each year. Even the legal psychotropic drugs, which we usually call medications, are designed to give quick relief of unpleasant sensations, and they must be taken regularly, often in increasing doses over time to maintain their effects. Despite the beliefs of many physicians and patients, despite the claims of many pharmaceutical companies, the research indicates that the medications don't cure what ails us. The medications don't bring us joy. My point is not that medications are bad. Rather, I think it is important for us to recognize the vibration of the medication and what it is we are really seeking. Do we want to feel relief in the moment, or do we want to find happiness and joy? Or do we want both? If what we want from our soul self is joy, but we keep choosing the short-term relief offered by medication out of a lack of awareness, we send a muddled message to the universe. If what we want is a swift way out of pain, but we keep going to therapist after therapist in search of the pleasure of expeditious relief, but not finding it, we are once again sending a confusing communication to the universe and to ourselves. If we can sort out the vibrations of pleasure, happiness, and joy, we can consciously, intentionally create a life that has all three experiences in harmony with ourselves. Let's look at another example. Over the years, I have worked with a number of people who are in chaotic, unhealthy relationships, who are unhappy and want things to change. They are also unwilling to leave their partners, even though they know that staying with their partner is making things worse. Why? These individuals confuse pleasure with happiness. Often, a major source of their resistance comes from the physical attraction they feel for their partner. He's so good looking. She's beautiful. They also are drawn in by the intensity of the physical distress and relief cycle they experience. The physical rush of the pain they feel when things are bad, the intensity of the physical symptoms of rage, grief, and so on, increase the physical feelings of pleasure at the reunion. What they are truly responding to is the physical rush of the seesaw of withdrawal, followed by the return of the pleasurable stimuli. The physical sensations that accompany the flood of relief at reunion are misidentified as happiness. I have heard person after person describe reunion as happiness, but it is actually pleasure, superficial and short-lived. How do I know? by the expressions on their faces and the words that quickly follow their happiness declarations. Their expressions are of agony. Their words speak despair. Most importantly, they are sitting in a therapist's office asking for help. These people genuinely wanted happiness. They just didn't know what that meant. They couldn't connect with the vibration of happiness in the context of the relationship because they believed they were experiencing it when they actually weren't. Maybe it makes sense then to differentiate between pleasure and joy, to be clear about what brings us pleasure and what brings us happiness. Does it really matter if we don't bother to sort out happiness and joy? Well, that depends on the lives we want to manifest. If we are satisfied with lives that feel nice, easy, where we spend more time feeling happy than not, there really isn't a need. However, I worked with people in my psychotherapy practice, and I am now working with people as a spiritual catalyst who are happy while recognizing that there is more. They feel happy when things are going well, but they struggle significantly when they meet contrast. They have manifested important and satisfying events, people, and circumstances in their lives, and that feels very rewarding. They also recognize that there are some important dreams that don't seem to be manifesting, even though they understand the process of co-creating. Perhaps most importantly, a fair number of these seekers don't experience the consistent connection with their deities, with Creator, with Goddess, with God, that they yearn for. I think that being able to understand, express, feel, and utilize the unique vibrations of pleasure, happiness, and joy may be an important missing component in their journeys. I want to clarify that my point is not that people need to learn that pleasure and happiness don't cut it if you want to live a joy-filled life that will get you to the good place. Each of these powerful vibrations is important to understand, to recognize, and to utilize if we want to appreciate the diverse beauty of the manifested world, if we want to continue to co-create more wonder. I want to offer a few examples of how that might look in a practical sense. Pleasure is a powerhouse of motivation, a largely unthinking stimulus response chain, and a short-lived sensation. Recognizing that the driving vibration behind a habit or a choice is pleasure will help us understand where the habit or choice fits in the life we are co-creating. If I want to attract more healthy physical activity into my life, and I know that sitting on the couch is a habit that is interfering with my desire, I can recognize that there is a pleasure involved in my current choice or lack of choice. Pleasure carries a vibration of motivation. I want to get more motivated. How do I add the vibration of pleasure into the process? Often what we do is add pleasure at the end of the unmotivating behavior. That's okay. The reward works. What works even better? Embed the pleasure in the activity. Find any physical activity that is also pleasurable and do that first. The vibration of pleasure is woven into the behavior. Then focus on the pleasure you feel. Let that be enough if you'd like. A possible next step is to recognize that happiness arises alongside the pleasure. Not only did this make me laugh, not only is my heart pounding, my breathing is deep, not only do my muscles feel a pump, I also feel satisfied, relaxed, and successful. I think I've really made a good choice today. I'd like to do that more often. Sooner or later, you can add in the joy if you'd like. Recognize that you are awakening to the subtle differences in vibration that used to elude your awareness. Now you are deciphering the conversation between you and Allah, the Tao, Mother Nature. You are experiencing the expansion of your internal wisdom so that each action, no matter how simple, no matter how mundane, is revealed as the sacred act that it is, and you are filled with gratitude for the wonder of co-creating. Perhaps you are feeling happy in your relationship. Things are pretty good. Lots of things are satisfactory between you and your partner. You also recognize that when things aren't good, you find yourself getting mired in discontent, making choices that seem to increase problems. Most concerning is that you become negative about life in general and find yourself angry with God or ignoring your spiritual practice as your mind gets stuck on what isn't working. Here, you can take time to observe. Ask yourself, what is my goal? If the goal is happiness, you may find that you stay in your funk for a few days and then go back to the status quo. Your partner likely does the same. You may exchange apologies or not. Instead, you focus on what makes you two happy. That will work well until the next time that things get rough, but you know that it's okay when you hit the next rough patch. You won't ever lose deity because deity is in you and all around you. It feels meaningful to come back to happiness, to the feelings of connection and intimacy, and to share pleasures between the two of you. Sliding in and out of spiritual practice isn't ideal, but it is very human and very understandable. Rather than adding the suffering of self-judgment about what you can do better, you recognize the pain of contrast and you allow the vibration of happiness to resurface with time and habit. If your goal is joy, being able to recognize the difference between the vibration of happiness in the relationship and the desire for joy within yourself will guide your choices. I feel happy when things settle back to a peaceful, easy connection. What would the vibration of joy feel like? It would feel like equanimity. It would feel like understanding the process of discord so that I can make choices in the face of contrast that intentionally expand my relationship with my partner and with myself. I can connect with the vibration of joy so I can maintain perspective that hitches the contrast with the argument where it resides, rather than erroneously spreading the contrast to everything in my life. We are so incredibly blessed to have choices in what and how we co-create. We get to decide where to put our resources, what feels like enough, where we want to create richer diversity, and where we are called to let someone else do their co-creating, and to enjoy or to allow the outcomes of their process. Pleasure, happiness, and joy are a part of the amazing diversity that is our manifested world. These vibrations are part and parcel of existing. When we are able to recognize the unique vibration of each of these powerful feelings, when we understand how these vibrations show up in our physical, emotional, intellectual, creative, intuitive, and spiritual anatomies, and when we begin to consciously and intentionally invoke the vibration that best suits our co-creative process in the moment, we have the opportunity to experience a delightful expansion in who we are and how we walk our unique spiritual paths. If you are eager to hone your awareness of vibrations and how they show up in your life, but aren't sure how to proceed, connect with me to ignite your inner wisdom and light the way forward on your living path. You can reach me via my website or email or on Facebook at Caravan of Dreams MT. Our music is used by permission of the artist, Sean Phoenix. Thank you, Sean. And thank you to Bozeman Public Library for the Workbench Sound Studio located in beautiful downtown Bozeman, Montana. If you would like to learn more about allowing and how to find your unique style of manifesting, please visit my website, caravanofdreamsmt.com, or email me at dancingwitchmt@gmail.com. This is Ginny Watts, the Dancing Witch. Till next time, blessed be.